Good afternoon, everyone. It's so great to see so many people here. Thank you for coming. And just the housekeeping. Can you hear us? Can you see us? Because obviously it is a round table and we would like to make sure that it's very close. Oh, great. Everyone can see. Excellent. So, we have 1 minute to go. What would be useful, of course, you could use chat, but if you also could try to unmute yourself and talk to us, it would be great, because it is a round table, and what we would like to see the participation and, you know, the meaningful discussion. We have 30 minutes to enjoy ourselves, and we are last, but I'm sure that would be the best session, because the people who are here, they are really true heroes. You stayed the whole day for the conference, and we really appreciate. So, without further ado, 4:30, shall we start? Hello, my name is Yelena Kalyuzhnova, and I would like to introduce our team, Tatiana, Rowson, who is our I would say a computer guru, because Tatiana is responsible for slides and for everything what is technical, and for everything what is not working, just blame her. And Olena, she is our teaching assistant in Henley Business School. We all came from Henley Business School, and today we really wanted to have this discussion to share with you our thoughts about the virtual breakout rooms. We want still to understand it's not a provocative title, it is a real title. Is it a blessing or curse in teaching and learning? And the idea of this came to us during when we start to implement our blended learning in Henley Business School, and we face with all sorts of computer questions and challenges. And therefore, next slide, please. We came to the point that although everyone was saying that it is small group teaching is absolutely essential today, and breakout rooms is a blessing for us. What we see in the reality that when we tried, apparently everything is not rosy as it could be. Some people absolutely love it. You click in the computer and you divide your students into breakout rooms and you walk through them. You're like butterfly talking to them, and everything is great. And some said they absolutely hate it. It's from the point of view of the lecturers, but it's also the students. Some of them wouldn't like spotlights in the breakout rooms. Some of them would find this, as one of my tutees said, it's actually good for my mental health. So we have such a different ideas, and therefore we decided that if we are here to improve our teaching and learning experience, let's get to the bottom of the problem and understand where these breakout rooms could be useful, and where these breakout rooms could be a challenge, and how carefully we could tackle this. Next slide, please. And here it would be my colleague talking, and I will just switch off the microphone because we have the echo. So please, Tatiana.
So thank you, Yelena. So to explore the problem a bit more, like many institutions, we deliver a whole range of programs. We deliver undergraduates, doctorate programs, and MBAs and MScs, pre and post experience. We went on a round of observation. So we went to observe all the online sessions that happened, not all 18 sessions that happened between October and December 2020, to try to understand what were the behaviors, what were the elements that were working for different groups, and try to break it down or make sense into some themes in terms of where or areas to address in terms of breakout rooms. And I have to say that throughout the presentations throughout today, loads of ideas already emerged that we can plug in, and I'm sure in our discussion we'll plug even more to that. But the first theme that emerged was the roles and expectations. So what did we expected from our students in these sessions, and what were their roles? So whenever sending them out to this, we use sometimes Collaborate, sometimes Teams, sometimes Zoom, to this world of, I don't know, matrix, that they go to this different space. We expect them to behave in what way? And what we found is, of course, with post-experienced students, MBA students, that actually that was not difficult to set them up in a way they knew what they had to do in that particular space. With younger students, undergraduates, that was a little bit more problematic. And it was very easy to certain tutors to lose sight of that difference, or that understanding of role and expectations. The second theme was a type of tasks. Of course, when we send them to these breakout rooms, they can't reach and ask necessarily. It's not easy to reach back to the tutor. So tasks had to be very clear and very defined. So it was easy to send them, and they could get on and work or discuss and then come back to the main room. And finally is the process and interactions. And we call here the rule of engagements. So what's the etiquette? How do we behave? Do we go all on chat? Do we all put the cameras on? Do we keep the cameras off, mics on? And all these etiquettes, these rule of engagements, are not necessarily agreed. And we know there's quite a lot of research showing a range of experiences in terms of cameras on, cameras off, and the rationale for one decision or another. But the reality is, when we started that in October, there was no agreed sort of rules of engagement. So we went further to do a bit more digging, and I'll pass on to Yelena to talk a bit more about this pilot study we conducted to investigate a bit more. I will move on to the next slide.
Thank you, Tatiana. Yes, in order to examine Henley Business School's experience in breakout rooms and this issue, and understand different opinions, we conducted a pilot survey for students and staff at Henley Business School. So this data was collected during January and March 2021, and we targeted staff, PhD students, masters and undergraduates to complete our questionnaire. Next slide, please, Tatiana. And we have received 70 responses, 40 of which were from the PhD students, masters and undergraduates, and 30 from the teaching staff. Next slide, please. And having analyzed the results of the survey, we found out that the overall experience for staff has been positive in terms of students' engagement and seminars delivery. And for example, 77% of staff claimed that breakout rooms increased the students' interest in seminars, and 58% of staff believed that breakout rooms increased student knowledge about the module. But of course, there were some issues and concerns regarding the preparation for this online seminars. And the reason for this is that this preparation, it takes much more time than preparing for face-to-face seminars, as the teaching staff needs to need some additional time to figure out some technical issues and of the breakout rooms and the Blackboard or MC Teams and etc. So they should prepare some backup plans or any other ideas how to carry on the session. So therefore, 60% of teaching staff did not look forward to preparing for the seminars. In terms of the students, so their experience was positive overall as well, and the majority of the students claimed that it was a really good tool for the interactions and discussions, and the seminars have become more interesting. But however, some students experienced several difficulties when communicating with their peers. And for example, 44% of students found this tool really stressful, and 24% of students, they even left the seminars with the breakout rooms for some personal circumstances or some issues. And another interesting point was that breakout rooms have helped 40% of students to identify their developmental gaps. So it was a good and bad thing at the same time, because students realized that they really have some areas for improvement towards the teamwork and communication, engagement during the seminars, interactions with the seminar leader. So now we are moving on to the discussion.
Excellent. Next slide, Tatiana, please. So we have 20 minutes for the discussion, and we have to solve the whole problems today. So we have to be very well organized, although I understand that electronic discussion is not the same what it would be live. But let's try. So next slide, please. Our first discussion point would be, we could see clearly from that survey there is some rationale and there are good points. So the question will be, how can we maximize the benefits and minimize the limitations of the virtual breakout rooms in teaching and learning? Not just saying, yes, that's good or yes, that's bad, but how can we address these issues? And here I would like to invite not only panel, but also other participants. We've got 43 participants today, just to see, is it any room for maneuver, any ideas, any sharing experience? I'll start myself. I will be, maybe I will be provocative, but I would say that I feel comfortable only doing breakout rooms when I know the people, when I know my students, when I could rely on them. And at the same time, the students don't afraid to speak. They know me, and therefore we can discuss. Any thoughts? Anything?
Hey, Julie, would you like to join us now that I managed to add you? Nigel, would you like to jump in? And
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right. Can you see my image there?
Yes,
It's
yes.
just a diagram. It's just a diagram. Yes, you can't see me.
No.
I unmuted. I managed to unmute.
Yeah. Well, this is what this is some ideas I have, because I've done a lot of this now at Northumbria. Firstly, try and manage the situation with great detail. Have control over the breakout rooms and explain to the students exactly what's going to happen. That way we can avoid the some of the unintended little slights and problems that they have with this. Now, what I would suggest is, firstly, if you see that symbol there, that is Snap Camera. Now, it's not working here with this software, Hopin, but it does work with Collaborate very well. We've invested in this, and we're going to give the students the ability to have their own backgrounds. So they're not bothered about having their video on and seeing the fact that they're in a crowded little bedroom or something, or sharing with other students in a student accommodation. So that's the first thing. It would be nice actually to organize it so that you've got a red room, a blue room, a green room, and we just have a plain background there. And I think that will take away some of the reticence that we see about camera usage in breakout rooms. The other thing is I've organized it using Padlet, and I think a few people will be aware of Padlet and how that works. I'm talking here Collaborate, but with Collaborate you can add the Padlet link for that room to the name of the room. So when the students go in the room, they've got the link there, they can go straight to that Padlet. So it's like they've walked into a room and there's a whiteboard available to them. And then I use the process of, they can request me to go to the room for a quick discussion through the Padlet, because I'm looking at all the Padlets simultaneously. This is the problem. We can't be, once we're in a breakout room, we can't see what's going on in the other rooms. So it's better actually to hover on Padlet and watch what's going on. And that helps a lot. I found with some students who know each other a little bit better, they do put the cameras on. Others don't in other breakout rooms. But as soon as we start to take away some of the worry about the background that they're showing, that seems to ease matters somewhat. And the other final point I'd make is that I also make a point of using the chat to everybody to give them a countdown on when I'm going to draw them back to the main room. On the basis of what I've been doing, every student is assigned to a room. I'm not allowing them to go and pick a room. It's they're sent to a particular room with a certain group of students. So it's all preordained and prearranged, and they understand that. I think that helps, but I'll be very, very happy to hear if anybody else has got contrary ideas to that or any other suggestions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nigel. This is a brilliant suggestion. I quite like the Padlet one. I think that's a way to be in the room and not in the room at the same time. Julie, please.
Yeah, so I teach a small module with about 21, 22 students. And I use breakout rooms for smaller group discussions. The entire module is seminar based. So we do a lot of discussing. Sometimes we discuss in the big group. And sometimes I give them a question or something and ask them to go into breakout groups. And I let them, I didn't assign them to breakout groups. I let them, I assigned them to breakout groups, but I just used channels in Teams. So they weren't thrown into breakout rooms and thrown out the way that Teams, I don't know if St. Andrews, we are only allowed to use Teams. We can't use Zoom. We don't use any of the other fancy technology that other universities use. We only use Teams. So we have had to learn how to cope with Teams. And one of the things I know about Teams is you get kind of rudely thrown out of breakout rooms when your time is up. And because it's a very collaborative module, I don't really want the students to, I want them to finish their sentence and then come into the main group, you know? So I didn't use the breakout room function. I just used channels and I let them know or in advance what channel they were going to be in. But what I wanted to share is that the students also manage the discussion. So the way that it works is I manage the discussion for the first part of the module. And then every week there's a subtopic and the students facilitate an additional discussion. They have an hour and they facilitate a discussion and they manage the breakout room so well. And everybody kept their cameras on and everybody spoke and shared. And then it actually worked like just as good as, if not maybe better than in person. And I think because the students kind of had that responsibility and it was their session and everybody was kind of rooting for each other. Like nobody wants anybody else to fail. Everybody wants everybody to do well. There was a kind of incentive to be positive and to try and, you know, even sometimes I would notice that the students would think the question that their fellow students had asked them to discuss was maybe not quite the right question, but they would still, you know, try and persevere to get the answer to the question they've been asked to discuss. So, I mean, I think to some extent kind of sharing responsibility for how you use the breakout rooms with the students and giving them empowering them somehow about the use of breakout rooms. So they're not like feeling like they're forced into it, but they're kind of part of the decision to use them. And also just very quickly on the Padlet thing, the way that we did it was we shared a Padlet with all the participants. This was not my teaching. This was in a seminar that I led with other staff members. We shared the Padlet with everybody. And on the Padlet, there was like a section for group A, a section for group B, and a section for group C. And actually, as you were discussing, you could see what other groups were discussing. And then at the end, we had a plenary discussion where we could all share. And so we didn't, one of the great things is we didn't have to get like a lot of feedback because it was all there in the tablet. So when we went to plenary, we just asked the groups to share like one main thing, but everybody could read all the discussion points on the Padlet. So using some additional piece of technology that's shared across the groups like Padlet, I think is a really good idea. And I'm going to shut up now.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Tatiana, next slide, please. So we're moving to a second level of the discussion here. And for us, it's interesting to understand how can the emotional distance of line learning be improved. You know, I'm sure this session will be much more lively if we will be live. And is it the human art of connection rather than the technology advanced mastery, or is it something which we need to think of? Any ideas?
It's emotional connection. I'm going to jump there as the conversations flow. There's quite a lot happening in the chat here. So emotional connection is a big thing of involving or engaging the students. One of the things you observed is in the very large modules with over 200 students, that become so that they can easily become really removed from the tutor, from the lecturer, and especially when we send them to breakout rooms. So it's very difficult for them to engage. And I can see that we had someone mention ghost students, and that becomes part of symptomatic of that lack of emotional connection, where you appear there and you're not there. Or we had cases of students just logging in for their mates with their name, but were not their mates there. It's just so their attendance could be taken on an online break room environment. So, and any other thoughts on this emotional connection? If you want to join and hear the panel, you can ask to join, and I can make it happen somehow. I'll press a button and it will work. So, Lynn, I quite it's interesting that the emotional barriers during the lockdown itself, the lack of emotional, the lack of contact outside the room, it just makes the whole online connection even harder to sort of you know, to sort of connect with people.
Yeah, I am reading a comment from Jennifer. We find students logged on to collaborate, but using they use chat to communicate with each other. So that's really common for the students. But I think maybe it should be some rapport with the seminar leader and the students to eliminate this emotional distance. So they could feel more comfortable in the session, in particular in the breakout rooms. So that's, yeah.
Excellent. That's bringing us to the next point of the discussion. Next slide, please, Tatiana. Here we come to the point that is it only emotional distance, or how do we promote this safe learning environment online? Maybe emotional distance is really connected with the lack of feeling of safeness, and maybe we need to. I even saw that we have study skills. Should we have study skills online? Should we have study skills in terms of what is an etiquette, how to behave, how to make sure that the experience is enjoyable and not a torture? I had a student who said to me that every day when I woke up and I know that I have virtual seminar is a torture, and day is completely collapsed for me. Any thoughts?
Could I add a thought here? It's Nigel speaking again.
Yeah. Yes, please.
I teach business strategy, and one thing I have noticed is that if you get into a conversation with the students about the possible shape of future work and lead into that conversation possibly about something in the news, they've just decided to give out a new type of season ticket to people commuting into London because they're only going to be going a few days a week. Is this new shape of work going to be something like you're experiencing right now in the breakout room? Is this going to be the shape of work to come? What can we do as a group together, us lecturers and students, to become much better at this? Because this might be the shape of it. And that seems to really hit home.
Thank you, Nigel. I think that's an important thing as well, because we do pose these questions to the students, how the future is going to be and how this is going to be more of a reality. I like the comments someone, Lynn Bradley put it there about the teenage daughter that communicate with friends without speaking or seeing them. So these different means of communications as well will become part of that. So understanding how to make that and make it as a safe environment, it would help us to make a best use of it. I'm aware of the time. Should we move on? Our final.
Yes, please. So let's move to the final question in our discussion. We still need to have conclusions, otherwise everything would be meaningless. So how should we use technology to create the opportunities for meaningful connection with the digital space? Not the digital space for the sake of digital space. Do we have any tips? Can we share with each other at this stage? I thought that it might even be connected with the size of these breakout rooms. What is the optimal size? Is it the size of 100 people in the breakout room? If we have 400 students in the module, Tatiana has 400 students. She's a guru in teaching undergraduates. Or do we need to have a certain format for this?
I think that's an interesting thought, and we could leave that open, because someone like myself that runs these modules that are very, very large numbers, it's just impossible to break into small breakout rooms that actually promotes that connection and belongingness with the students. So we use different strategies for that. But in the smaller modules, then it becomes really nice. It's like going to a nice syndicate room in a building and have those conversations a bit quieter, in a sort of a bit more anyway.
And I like the comments Frederick made about the digital space, which needs to be a space where students need each other in order to solve the problem. Maybe really it should be a need. It should be a problem. It's like learning the foreign languages. If you just decide to learn the language just for the sake of language, nothing will happen. If you have a need in foreign language, because otherwise you will die and you will be hungry, that is a different story. So maybe they have a need, a purpose, clear expectations, clear tasks which they need. And I completely agree with Lynn that facilitator, leader would be, like this session, if we will break each other, not break each other, break the sessions into the discussion groups and discuss the things separately. So let us move to the conclusion and reflections. And next slide, please. We probably will start with pluses for the virtual breakout rooms, just to understand where we stand, and also with minuses.
Yeah, thank you, Yelena. Well, speaking about the positive side of the breakout room activities, so this I think this study and this discussion enabled us to identify several pros, and so overall breakout rooms are really great tool for the students' interaction and the engagement in learning and delivering the seminars in these times in an interesting way. So we do as much as we can. And there is indeed a good opportunity to study remotely and save some significant amount of time. And finally, breakout rooms enhance students' engagement as active learners, providing better experiential learning. But there are, of course, some some cons. So, Yelena, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Lena. So here, what we see, definitely, it's a problem with the IT skills, with the connectivity problems, which would be maybe objective or subjective problems, but also sometimes a lack of confidence in the student and staff, and anxiety, stress, which is where psychological things might come to point. Sometimes it's a language barrier, and sometimes the level of interaction between staff and student is not there, but sometimes the level of interaction is not there even in a real life. So that came to us. Next slide, please, Tatiana. To the suggested principles, and Tatiana was working hard on the background because probably she took the ideas which were brought today by participants. Thank you, Tatiana.
Thank you. No, I think I'm glad that the session's been recorded because it generated so many ideas and the chat is really rich. So we will definitely add to that. But we said in the whole 5 points, one is having clear instructions on how to participate. This is our expectations for the students. Have target tasks for a specific problem. So be very specific at what we want them to do. Have a clear brief in advance that they can check on, and a clear debrief of each activity. So when they come back, they feel that that was worthwhile of their time and the investment. And final one is individual engagement of students. So think of them as individuals. So we ensure diversity and inclusion of everyone in any part of the globe that might be joining the breakout room. We bang on time, so I would say thank you very much for the participation. That was a brilliant session and wouldn't have been so brilliant without you. Thank you.